What's going on, traders? It's Ricky with TechBot Solutions. So thank you guys again for putting time aside and joining us for another recap on today's trading. Overall, a very successful day with the growth that we've seen so far today. As you guys can see based off the title, I'm up a little bit over $560, and it was with 3 simple trades. I ended up doing 2 of my biggest trades in the morning, and then my last trade was still a couple hours ago. I had a meeting with a couple members within TechBuds, and it was a very productive meeting. So sorry that I wasn't that active, but within the first 40 minutes, an amazing amount of profit that I was able to lock in. And then I ended up killing it with my last trade on JDST. I went in a little bit heavy with that trade, but again, we've been trading that one consistently, so I'm definitely going to be talking about that one. DRYS, I did very good. I called it out on pre-market movers right before the market opened, talked about the stocks that I was watching for the day, and I put that out right before the market opened, and I stuck to my plan. I knew how DRYS plays out, and that was pretty much it. So I'm going to give it a couple seconds for more viewers to start tuning in for our live chat. If you guys don't know what TechBot Solutions is a free networking group. The link is provided for you down below. Pretty much what we do best is share best practices and share mistakes in effort to promote growth. We're sitting a little bit over 12,000 members worldwide with all the different platforms that we have available, and we're a little shy of 7,000 members within our Facebook platform. So I can't thank you guys enough for the support. And for those that want to get started and want to just be a little bit more knowledgeable with this market of penny stocks, then this is definitely the group that I would suggest. And I'm sure many people can vouch for that on how to get started. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. I'm going to be talking about my whole thought process on the different stocks that I traded, why I bought in and stuff like that, just so you guys can see a breakdown if you guys can identify the potential that I did. So give me one quick second. Alrighty, so this is Snap. So CBIO, well, let's start off how the morning started. So I ended up holding JDST overnight, just like I called it out yesterday. Ended up getting in at 12.90, ended up selling for a 20-cent profit. And what I mean by that is yesterday I got in at 12.90. So I got in around this point right here, and then ended up getting in or selling at highs of 310. So it did have a huge spike all the way up to 330. I waited for it to come back down. I refueled, and with this single trade, I believe I had it was a little bit over $3,000 worth of $3,000 vested, and with my second trade, I had a little bit over $5,000. And again, I traded this one multiple times yesterday. I got in at 12.90, sold to highs of 13.30, and then I did just that with my trade after, and then I did that twice today. So I ended up selling first at 310, and then I got in again at 12.90, and I ended up selling at the resistance at $13.40. Overall, pretty much the reason that I knew that there was a resistance, if you guys didn't see yesterday's recap, was because this old support that it had at 1340, it now becomes a new resistance level. It's a trend or a technique that we use very often, how we use old supports as new resistance, and we identify that as a good sell point. So identifying that early is really what led to my success on getting out at that perfect point. So it's a little bit, actually it looks like it almost just broke above 1340. So hopefully we could see an upward trend. I wouldn't suggest getting into it until I see it go above EMA. So what I mean by that, it has had small pumps up to a little bit over 1345, but nothing much higher than that. So I think when it breaks above 1345 and starts to plateau, and then we start to see it break above EMA, then that's going to be a good indication that it might be a good time to get in again because of just the potential that it has. But we really need to see this break of this resistance and make sure that it sets 1340 as its new support. But overall, that was my trade with JDST. There was a huge amount of traders within the TechBot Solutions platform. So let me see if I can pull them up. That were able to talk about JDST and that were able to lock in huge amounts of profit. I did see one trader lock in over $600 worth of profit with this simple buy-in. I believe even at like $13, and then sold at the 1340 resistance because he was able to identify that early on. So if you guys don't see the potential, then don't jump into it. Make sure that you guys yourself as the investor can identify these supports and these resistance and then trade according to this. So hopefully if we see a break through JDST above 1340, 140. We can see it start writing up. Maybe some of you can jump onto it, but just know that JNUG and NUGT are the almost inverse ETFs for JDST, meaning that when JDST goes up, JNUG goes down, meaning that that's going to have the most potential maybe for this following day. And that's really just what I want you guys to be aware of, is to identify when they're good buy points. Just because they're hitting their peak doesn't mean that, or they see a lot of growth within a day, doesn't mean that they're good buys. That actually means that they have less potential for growth because they've already peaked out. So if JNUG continues to drop, then that could be a good buy for tomorrow as JDST continues to rise. Now for DRYS, I called this one out very early on that this was one that I was going to be focusing on within our pre-market group chat. And pretty much what I identified was, if we do a simple 2-day analysis, I saw that DRYS continuously, after this reverse stock split that it did, this news for potentially getting delisted, it's been on a downward trend, and that's no surprise, right? It went to, I believe, a 1/4 reverse stock split, so it increased the value of the stock. But again, that's just to manipulate the price in the sense because it was actually trading below $1. So understanding that means that it's continuously been on a downward trend. So definitely not a hold, right? Not a safe hold. Overall, you guys can choose to do whatever it is that you guys want. But as an investor, as a day trader, you need to identify these supports and resistance and trade according to this. I was really busy during my meeting, so I wasn't able to jump onto it on the second bounce. But very early on, right as the market opened, it took a huge drop right below the support that it had during pre-market hours from 180 to 190. So I had this level or margin of profit, right? Broke right below that and then started to bounce. And this is what I was waiting for. On my TD Ameritrade platform, when I was able to see the live chart, I saw that it bounced at lows of 162. I got in at 165, which showed above EMA, and it continued to rise. My plan was, I know 162 is the support. I know the resistance is going to be 180 because of the previous support that I had. That's why I called it out at 180. And now what am I going to do with that information? Well, now I know that I'm in at 165. Our resistance is at 180, so that's my good target, sell price, and my stop loss should be anything below 162 because that's initially where it bounced. And if you see that 162 support, that is almost exactly where these 2 points ended up touching. So it doesn't matter if you didn't get in at the lowest point, but it's getting in on the upward trend. And a lot of traders were able to jump in on this upward trend, meaning that if you got in anything above 165, you're golden. And that's really just it. I called it out that the resistance was at 180, and I did just that. I set my limit order to sell at 1.799, and I got filled right away as it went above 175. And I waited for it to break above 175 because it was a small resistance. If we get a little bit closer, you should be able to see that it somewhat struggled to go above 175. I was about to lock in my profits, and as I was going to do that, I set my stop loss. I moved it from the stop loss that I had down here at 1.6199, and I moved it to 1.699, meaning that once it broke above this 175 or 170 resistance, that's where I put my stop loss to lock in this margin of profit of 5 cents that I had. Ended up bouncing right at that 170 support after it hit that 175 resistance, and then it broke right through it the second time, and that's showing good momentum. I moved my stop loss that I had at 170, put in my limit order again at 1.799, and then I locked in my profit. It did go in a little bit higher. I saw a couple people lock in their profits a little bit above 180, which is totally fine since it did have this margin of profit from 180 to 190. So I understand that, but I didn't want to be too greedy. Again, I'm a little bit more of a conservative trader, so I wanted to lock in my profits where it made sense to me. And 165 and 180 made sense to me as a support resistance. So what did I do? I set 165 as my buy-in, 180 as my sell point, and stop loss right below the support. It was a simple plan. My margin for loss, right, was essentially about 3 cents. So a very minimal loss with the potential for profit was a lot greater. That was an amazing trade, and it ended up playing out almost exactly like that the second time. Ended up bouncing at this same 162 support. And again, I was busy, so I wasn't able to jump in, but I was getting alerted during my meeting. So I'm sorry that I wasn't able to alert you guys, but it bounced, really stayed stagnant. So what you could have done is like, well, I'm not too sure if it's actually going to bounce. You have to understand that it's all about risk management. And if you saw that it had the support around 165, what's your real risk? Well, if you get in with $1,000, at 1.65, and you put a stop loss right below the support where it's been bouncing and holding above within 1, 2, 3 times, then you're only risking really 3 cents. So not much, right? But what's your potential for profit? Well, your potential for profit from 165 to 180 is 15 cents, and compared to a $1.16 stock, that's your 10% growth. That should be your target goal for the day. So overall, the potential for profit is so much greater than the potential for loss. Therefore, as an investor, for myself, I saw the value in that, and it really comes down to yourself. As the current price point that it's at, it looks like it's holding above 170 or 185 from, actually I need to update my graph, from 185 to the potential of profit that it has here to 190. That risk isn't really worth it for me because the margin for profit isn't much. But if it comes back down to this 180 support and it starts showing signs of upward momentum, the 180 to 190 isn't such a bad idea. And then you can stop loss out if it drops below 180. But it all comes down to risk management, and if you see the potential in and setting up a plan to trade accordingly. Again, the only way you're going to see growth within your account is if you minimize the amount of money you lose and to lock in your profits when you're in the green. If you guys haven't seen already with our $1,000 challenge, starting with $1,000, if you see with your Robinhood account 2.3% growth per day, 3 days out of a week, 4 weeks out of a month, you'll be bringing in 28% growth every month, and then continuously compounding that from $1,000, you would see a net growth of, I believe it's 19,000, or your ending balance would be 19,343. Now just imagine if you change this to $2,000, right? Now you're seeing $38,000, and you see this graph changes accordingly. Now let's see if your average for profit is a little bit greater, and you lock in simply, instead of the 2.3%, you lock in 3.3%, so 1% more a day. Simply locking in that much more profit. Now per month, I believe is about 36. So let's put 36 with $2,000. You're going to be seeing a growth of $80,000. Although it sounds very simple, it really comes down to the investor. And if you can dedicate yourself and dedicate the time to stay consistent, stay persistent, and stay realistic. And it's those that cut losses short and overall lock in just steady growth of profit weekly are the ones that are going to see growth in their account. It's not always about locking in 100 or like anything greater than 10% profit a day when you're taking 10% plus losses every single day. So I want to make sure you guys understand that the potential is there. It's for those users that take advantage of the planning and minimizing loss that end up being successful in the long run, right? This is all for long-term growth. And then my last trade, very quickly. For CBIO, I saw a strong support around that 540. Wow, this is a huge range. This is a really ugly graph. So let me just show you guys what I was seeing. So I saw potential for growth at this 540 support, and I saw potential for profit or resistance at 555. The reason I saw that was 555 was a previous support, and now we built a new support at 540. So I ended up getting in at 545. So again, not at the lowest point, ended up selling at 555. 10 cents, is what I locked in. Nothing crazy, very simple. It was a very simple trade. I was in and out within a matter of minutes. And then again, that was just another trade that I was able to lock in. I believe that was about like 1.8% profit. Again, not the largest amount, but it was something. I saw the potential, I saw the margin for profit, and I had a plan where I was buying, where I was selling, and where I was going to cut my losses because I understood this trend that was going on with CBIO. Continuously, it's been on a downward trend, and that's something that I talked about. Therefore, CBIO, I wouldn't suggest for it to be a hold, but it definitely does have margins of profit. And what I mean by that is it does have, huge margins that it can make up potentially, but steadily it's been on a downward trend. So it's up to you as the investor if you identify potential with that. And I want to hear what you guys think. You guys saw my little Excel sheet, and I'm actually going to share that with you, especially because we're going to officially be launching the Robinhood $1,000 challenge. And I'm going to be doing it with you guys. I'm going to be doing it with a margin account. If you guys haven't seen my video already, it should be popping up at the end of this video, or go ahead and click on my YouTube channel. And it's one of my most recent helpful videos. And what that video talks about is how I'm going to start investing with $1,000, right? With $1,000 and growing that to $20,000. And I'm going to start with $1,000 because realistically, I feel like a majority of our traders within TechBot Solutions can see that and can actually have those $1,000 to initially invest. But what I'm going to be focused on is sharing my best practices, sharing my mistakes, and effort for you guys as viewers and as, in a sense, members of this group can learn from what it is that I'm doing good and what I'm doing bad to grow your own account and to grow yourself as an investor. But that's really just it. I'm super excited because it just really, I believe, is eye-opening for a numerous or a large number of you guys, because you guys aren't too aware that, you know, with simply $1,000, with consistent growth and compounding that complete account and reinvesting it, the growth that you guys could actually see a year. But it really comes down to the investor. If you are willing to work for it, and if you are willing to stay consistent and lock in that profit, then that growth will be there, and that growth will follow you as you continue to grow and develop yourself as a trader. I can't thank you guys enough again for putting time aside and watching this video. If you guys have any questions or suggestions that you guys want me to elaborate on, feel free to let me know. And if you guys want to be a part of TechBot Solutions, again, the link is going to be provided for you down in the description. If you want access to this group chat or to that Excel sheet, I'm going to be posting it within our group chats and then within our Facebook platform as well. So you guys can change the initial or the principal, you know, investment, change whatever it is that you guys want to see in return monthly, because I want to make sure that although I'm doing this $1,000 to $20,000 challenge, if you want to start off with $100, if you want to start off with, you know, $500 or want to start off with $5,000, then that you can set up your own plan. I just offer you the template, and so you can stay, you know, according to what you need to be hitting weekly, monthly, and then yearly as well. Thank you guys again so much. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and let's make sure that we end this year on a green note. Take care, guys.